today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being a part of this. And I know when people catch this on the replay, they will be
Mhm.
filled with some great insight. So tell us a little bit about you and your practice and why mindfulness psychotherapist.
Well, I think you did a great job of kind of introducing me, explaining my practice a little bit already. So thank you. But yeah, so why mindfulness? I think it was really because I created my company at a time that I was going through a large transition in my own life, just kind of like how you described. I think I was just beginning that process of recovering from that toxic stress and burnout.
Mhm.
And so I really was very inspired by my own journey and really it came from that place when I, thought about like, well, what am I going to name my company? What do I want to stand for? Because I don't want to just be kind of like everyone else. I want to stand out. And that was a really important part of my own experience. So I wanted to kind of share that with others. Um, I think because I also speaking to even just a lot of my own colleagues, as bizarre as it may sound, therapists, we can also struggle with stress and things like that, and being a helper and wanting to help other people, but kind of putting ourselves on the back burner. So I think it kind of came from that place of, well, how do we, and not just in this field, but in a lot of fields too, how do we kind of shift out of that into a different place? So being more mindful. And for me, mindful just really means intention. So being intentional and observant and intentional about how we're living our lives in all aspects, whether it's personal or professional.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hear people throwing around the term mindfulness, and I feel like some people actually don't even know what that really means. Do you notice that? That
Hmm.
in 2020, people were like mindfulness this and mindfulness that, but do they really know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be like a simple way to break it down for someone that doesn't know what that means?
So, well, just kind of like I said, the way I have my own kind of little take, and you can kind of go. I mean, everyone has their thing, right? But mindfulness is essentially is being aware of what's happening. So you can be mindful of the internal, what's happening inside of you, or the external. But it's really being present in that moment and aware of what is occurring in that moment. I add intention for me, I think, because I'm a very action oriented type of person. So
Hmm.
the awareness is great, but then what do you do with that awareness? So for me, that's where it comes out, of practicing really this. It's really a way of kind of being. So yeah, I think a lot of people think of mindfulness. Oh, I'm going to practice my mindfulness every
Hmm.
now and again, but it's really, I think, a big mental shift as to all areas of your life and how you're moving through that with being aware and intentional. And I'm sure we'll probably talk of later on of some really great ways of how
Yeah.
we can be aware and intentional about our actions in ways that have really helped me and that I can really help a lot of people to do that.
I think that's
Yeah.
a great breakdown.
Hmm.
And it can go deep as people want it to be. I feel like
Hmm.
there's the surface level stuff, but it can go really deep when you have it as a practice, which leads us into what we're talking about today.
Hmm.
I work with women entrepreneurs, and we were talking. I love the conversations I have behind the scenes when I talk
Hmm.
to like colleagues and when I talk to other women entrepreneurs, because I'm like, this is the stuff we need to be talking about.
Yeah.
This is what should be the conversation and the topics. So we were
Hmm.
talking about Women's History Month. We were talking about developing purpose, if you remember. And I shared something about my own experience with learning my purpose, figuring out my purpose, and then things that I grew up hearing, things that my father said to me, things that people say to you,
Yeah.
and feeling like I'm trying to do this career, I'm trying to have this business because I want this person to see that I am good or I'm worthy or make them
Hmm.
proud of whatever it is. Like looking to others, looking outside of myself. And I remember you said, oh, Okay. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember when we were talking about that. Yeah. And
So,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, that's our topic today, perspectives on purpose and how we
Hmm.
can use mindfulness for this. So,
Hmm.
you take it away.
So I didn't hear what you said at the end. Sorry.
Go ahead and take it away. Tell us about this because, we want to know, how do we go from this mindset of I want to please others? I want to have others, show me my purpose or prove something to others.
Right, right. So I think when we were talking about that, we were just talking about when you come from that place of like in spite of, right? So this place of I have to disprove, I have to prove my worth. How then there is this, it's not as satisfactory, I would say. It's not as joyful and it's less balanced, when you're coming from that place, because I think the biggest thing for folks is that you're more likely to go past your boundaries, to do too much, to not really be checking in with yourself when it's this, I'm doing this to prove something for myself, right? And when you instead look at, well, what is my true, what's at the core of this for me? Like, really, like, what do I, asking those questions, what do I really get out of this? What do I really love about this? Is this even the right fit for me? You know, a lot of people, I think, go into certain careers, right? Certain even relationships or whatever it is, because they feel like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what looking good looks like, or doing well looks like, or whatever. And they end up finding themselves like maybe okay in the beginning, it's okay and it's fine, but then usually over a period of time that kind of starts to deteriorate because they're not really aligned with themselves. They're not aligned with their purpose, and they start to feel stressed out. They can lead, more likely to lead out to end up leading to burnout. They feel dissatisfied with what it is that they're doing, because it's not really right for them. It's uh what I say, like somebody else's vision, right? And that's not the best place to be. So, we want to lead from that place instead. What is my, who am I at my core? I think that's a really great question and a great way of kind of starting. And does this really align with who I am? Just kind of starting there, and you build from there. And again, that can go expand into all different areas of your life, not just your career, your business that you've chosen. And then you can start kind of adding in these small things, but really just, again, being mindful, being aware, right? And then that's why I always say aware and intention. So I'm aware of it. Okay, now what do I do about it? How can I be more intentional about aligning with what does feel right for me? Uh, and you start small, and again, you build and you build. And eventually you can get to a point where, I mean, when you really are in your purpose, there's just something so beautiful and powerful about that. And you feel, you know what, you also feel, I think, more confident too. I don't know if you've kind of had this experience for yourself, but where you feel more confident, you know, and grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen to you, like directly, where you decided? I know I've spoken to therapists and they've had this experience,
Yeah.
depending on your culture. They're like, what? You're going to be a therapist? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced that, but from a Caribbean background, being a therapist is not like a real job. I was actually told that, like, when are you going to get a real job?
Ooh, okay.
And that can be really hard because what you're saying is very true. You have to know who you are, and
Hmm.
step into that. It feels very powerful. But if you're around people who are telling you that's not a good job, or who you are is not good enough, or making
Right.
you feel bad about it, then how do you break through that?
Hmm. So you bring up a great point. Culture can definitely have a big impact. So my background is more South American culture. Well, my dad is Ecuadorian, my mom is Puerto Rican. But more the South American I would say I got more of that influence. And part of that is very patriarchal, at least again in my own family system. There might be differences, but at least from my background, that's kind of how it was. And well, I think we had spoke about this when we did chat. So one of the things from that place, and this is again like where you come from, and there's nothing wrong with wherever you start, right? If you start from that drive of, well, I'm going to disprove someone, okay, that's fine. You're starting, you're still trying to better yourself and do something good for yourself, so that's fine. But again, it's the point that it's probably not sustainable, so for myself, it kind of started with, I think my father had told me like, oh, well, you're just a woman, so whatever you do won't really matter. And like literally this was a conversation that we had when I was a little kid, and that's where my like fire came from, of like, no, I'm gonna prove you wrong, like I matter, and I'm gonna prove all around here so much that I matter, which is probably what eventually led me into experiencing that burnout, for that constant need to say like, no, I have to disprove, I have to prove, I have to prove. Um, but I think, I'm sorry, what was their question? And as far as
So
it goes,
your, your dad told you that, right?
yeah, that
That
was literally a conversation.
that
Yeah.
was a conversation that you had. And it sounds like you were younger, like around how old were you?
Oh, real young. I was probably like maybe 9, something like
Mhm.
that. I was little, you know.
But even at that
Oh,
age, you got it.
yeah, even at that age, it really bothered me. It stuck with me, and I can remember even until adulthood. It really wasn't until the last few years that I was really kind of able to let that go and not let. I think again, because I experienced burnout not once but twice. So it was like
Mhm.
after the second time, then that kind of started to sink in, and I had to kind of ask, okay, like where is this? Like, why do I do this to myself? Why I'm not living in a healthy way? What is that about? But I think, oh, sorry, I just remember. I think your question was more about like, also just like mental health. And yeah, so that wasn't something that was really like believed in our family system, like mental health issues or mental illness. So it was pretty interesting when I decided to become a therapist as well. The support, not really the most. Things have shifted over time, thankfully, but even then that has been that was a bit of a challenge, you know, um, but yeah, I've found such joy in what I do, and now I'm okay with whatever, I think again, like, I found my purpose, I'm living my purpose every day, and that does help to kind of quell whenever you get that negative feedback. It doesn't
Mhm.
really hit as much because you feel that on the inside, that like, "No, this is good, this is me," and you feel such satisfaction when you come from that place of purpose.
You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
I feel like earlier when you were saying we choose careers based on what someone else is saying, I was
Mhm.
pursuing law, like I wanted to be an
Oh,
attorney.
yeah.
My father really valued attorneys if you were a doctor or an attorney.
Mhm.
And anytime someone's child was going to law school or they were an attorney, he would kind of throw that at me. And he actually
Uh,
had a conversation with me similar to what your dad had, but I was much older. At this point, I was probably like 19 or 20. So I'm already in college. And he says to
yeah.
me, you are throwing your life away. And
Oh,
he actually called me worthless. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to show him, but I was going to show him by becoming the attorney, what he wanted me to be.
mm,
Like you said, I didn't realize until I was about 28. It took me a long time to realize what I was doing. I was like,
yeah.
I don't actually want to be an attorney. And I went as far as getting a paralegal certificate, working in law firms and all that.
Wow, so you were going down that path.
Went down that path
Yeah.
wait till 28, and then I got laid off in the recession. And when the recession happened and I got laid off from a law firm, I realized I don't want to do this. I
Mm,
thought leaves like I don't want to do this. I don't want to work in a law firm. I don't want to be an attorney. I don't want to go to law school. I was studying for the LSAT and doing those programs, like the study
yeah.
programs and everything.
Yeah.
So it's something that can stay inside of you. And I think if people are aware and they practice mindfulness, they'll be able to tap into sooner who they are and
Mhm.
be okay if those others oppose or don't
Mhm.
support. So that leads us to the other question, like if you're a woman entrepreneur and people are like, that business is not going to make it,
Mhm. Or
everybody
that
else
business isn't for a woman. That's
that is
another one too.
a woman,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're hearing that, it could get to you and you could question yourself, but how do you think mindfulness could help someone with that?
Mhm. So I think in the way it helps is to, I think turning more inward is probably the better way. So when I'm around those people or getting that message, what's coming up for me? And just kind of honestly, the process of just kind of first of all learning to sit with that, because especially if it comes from our family system, right, we're so used to it. And I think you had mentioned people pleasing earlier, right? And I think part of this is like, yeah, I want to please my family, or I want to make them proud, or honestly, I hear a lot from people that they just don't want to disappoint or be a disappointment, so they go through that, you know so turning, and you're so used to turning away from yourself. That's a big thing. So we're so used to, okay, this is the message that I'm getting. I don't want to be a disappointment. Um, I want to prove that I have some worth here. So whatever I feel about this, I just kind of stuff it down. I ignore it. Um, so just first learning to kind of befriend those emotions that you're having and validate yourself, because you might not be getting that from your family or your friends or whoever that have been around you. Um, and when you do kind of start that process, how can you just be, first of all, compassionate, compassionate with yourself, loving towards yourself, say, you know what, I'm feeling really sad about this, or I'm feeling really frustrated. I want this love, or I don't want to be a disappointment. And it makes me sad that I feel like I have to work so hard to gain that, right?
Mhm.
And then what else is there? I think kind of how you ask, well, when do I notice when I
Mhm.
light up? So what lights me up? And coming from that place, that in your stomach, it's like, oh, wow. Do I light up when I interact with people, when I talk to people? Do I light up when I'm more on my own? There's some people, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So some people, like, they find that that's what really kind of lights them up. Do I gain it from when I'm helping others? Are there certain aspects of that? Do I gain it when um I don't know, like I'm doing scheduling or or whatever else, just kind of becoming more curious about, so it's kind of really like this new, almost like a rebirth. Like it's just a very exploration. If you think of almost like a toddler, right? They're very
Mhm.
curious about everything. Kids are so curious.
Yeah.
They don't really think, they're just like, oh, what's this? What's this? What's this?
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
kind of touch everything and look at everything, and they ask you 1,000 questions. And the moms out there will know what I'm talking about, right? And they're just like, oh my gosh, can this kid sometimes it's like, can they just stop with the questions? I need a break. um but having that same process in adulthood, and really starting to kind of notice those things, and then look at, okay, well, what what possible careers or type of fields fit with this? What aligns with this? And I think really that's kind of the starting place. And you explore, just being curious, exploring that. But you first got to be honest with yourself, not turn away from yourself as you might be programmed to do so. um, be compassionate and give yourself the chance to explore, and it'll come, and try new things, and it'll come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What helped me was to get to a place of validating myself. Like, I
Hmm.
like this. I'm proud of me. I did
Yeah.
a good job with that. And also being okay if I didn't have support. from others,
Mhm.
or if I didn't have agreement of others, or,
Yeah.
if others didn't co-sign. I had to get okay with that,
Right.
because I noticed what happened to me when I was pursuing other people's dream for my life. I noticed
Mhm.
that I felt anxious, frustrated,
Mhm.
bored, like, like a zombie almost, going to jobs
Right.
that I didn't like. And I started feeling depressed when I was working in jobs that I didn't enjoy.
Mhm.
I felt depressed about it. Even if the money was good, I didn't want to
Yeah.
go on Sundays. I would get a stomach ache, my head would hurt. And I was just like, this is not worth it. I want to do things that make me feel good, like you said. And I don't care
Yeah.
if they co-sign, I don't care if they support. Even when I started a business, even till this day, when
Mhm.
I have clients and they're like, oh, my friends and family don't support, they don't like my posts, they don't share them, they don't, whatever. I'm like, well, do you like what you're doing? Are
Yeah.
you making money? Is them not liking your post going to stop you from liking what you're doing or making money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But I totally agree with you got to get okay with not getting that acceptance. And that's where, yeah, that validation with just first of all learning how to acknowledge what you're feeling because that might have been denied, feeling that, validating that, and I would say getting a good support system too. So again, being intentional about, well, who is in your circle? Who are you sharing these things with? Because if you're on this journey, entrepreneurship, it's a hard journey already. Like I'm not gonna sugarcoat that and say like everything happens. Anybody who is an entrepreneur knows that you work really hard. You will have a lot of failure. In that process, you keep going. You also can achieve success as well, whatever that looks like to you. So that's another thing too. How do you define success for yourself, right? For me, success isn't so much about the money that I'm making, though obviously we all have to pay bills and we all got stuff we got to pay for. So that's important. But for me, the success is, do I have balance in my life? You know, um, am I able to take care of myself? Am I able to take the time that I need to replenish myself? That for me is success. And so I might say no to things more than some other people might. And I've had some opportunities where financially could be a good opportunity, and I've said no. And I've had people that are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
Mm.
"No," because that's me being mindful about like, well, what's my goal here, and that's how I define success. So that's okay for me, and I'm okay with it. you know
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
okay.
It's understanding, right, what alignment is.
Yes,
You
everybody
use
has
that
a different, yeah.
Yeah, you have to understand alignment. I totally get what you're saying.
Hmm.
I am asked to speak somewhere now. In the past, not so much. Now I'm
Hmm.
like, who am I speaking to? Because if I know that I talk about mental health and I talk about entrepreneurship and women and all those things, and you say, can you speak to this group of random senior citizens at a senior center? I'm not probably going to be the best person to do that.
Hmm.
And I'm not aligned with them. They're not aligned with me,
Hmm.
or something else, just totally just different demographic or something.
Right.
It's just not going to work out. If you ask me to talk about schizophrenia, I can't help you. I will not be the person. I'll try to find someone and refer
Yeah.
it. So it's just really being in alignment, because when you're not, you find, like you said, you're just all over the place and then you end up burned
Hmm. Yeah,
out.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where I think it's good to have a good support system in place again, because they're going to help you also kind of be on track, you know, and stay focused on what it is that you are passionate about. Because I think if you have some good friends around you, they'll let you know, right? I think for me, a definition of a really good friend, can you be honest with me? Just be honest with me. It's not always going to be pretty, but we we need that too. You know,
Yeah.
and there's a difference when that's coming from someone that you trust versus, you trust and you have the mutual respect, versus maybe, let's say, people that you feel like they already kind of don't support you and they're already going to be critical and negative to begin with. That's going to stifle your growth. That's going to stifle your being more aligned,
Yeah.
because they already don't get it or get you and what you're doing. So why would you ask those people for, I think you were saying earlier, like approval or advice on something? They're not rooting for the journey that you're on. You need people that are, and that will help you continue. Because again, being an entrepreneur, there's challenges, and you need that support to say, okay, who's a couple people? And I have a couple people, like colleagues, and that's a really good thing, that I can call and we can be like, okay, hey, so I'm having this issue. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? What's your feedback for me?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
My business friends, I have a business bestie. Those are my coworkers because I don't have someone at the cubicle across or the
exactly.
office, down the hall. So I have my
Yeah.
business friends. You do need that. So for anyone who wants to reach out to you to find out more about your services, to work with you, where can they find you on social media?
So you can find me, the place that I'm the most active on is Instagram, and it's just at the underscore mindful underscore psychotherapist. I also have a Facebook page. What is that one? Oh, Mindful Life Solutions, or my website, www.mindfullifesolutionsllc.com.
Okay, thank you. We will also be putting links to that in this so you can find that information as well. And usually I ask my guests if they'd like to leave a conquer prompt for the community. A conquer prompt could be a quote that you really love, or it could just be your takeaway that you want people to walk away from this session with. It's whatever you want.
Okay, I got this because I have a favorite quote. So my favorite quote is by Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher, and it goes, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." So keeping that in mind, whatever you're striving for, whatever you're working towards, just remember, one step at a time, you can get there.
I absolutely love that one. One
Yeah.
step. That's all that people have to do. And
Mhm.
high achievers and overthinkers want to know what the 25th
Mhm.
step is. Just one step.
Right. Even if you're on the second step, third step, fourth step, 25th step out of 1,000, you're still getting closer every day. You're getting
Yeah.
closer every day. You'll get there.
Thank you
Mm.
so much. I appreciate you taking your time. I value that, and I'm not just saying
Mm.
this lightly. I am definitely grateful that you shared with us today. Hopefully, in the future, you will come back to the Conquer Network, so we can do some great things for an event or a masterclass or something like that, because there's so much we need to learn about how to use mindfulness
Oh yeah,
for,
we could talk so much.
for our
It went
own.
by fast, actually. I realized, I was like, oh, there were so many more things I wanted to say,
Oh,
but
so definitely we can have a part two or
yeah,
three, figure something out because this was
yeah.
just the tip of it. And it's just a snippet, you guys, of how to work through those naysayers. And some people call it
Mhm.
haters or whatever you call
Yeah.
them, that you think are stopping you from your purpose. They don't have to.
Mhm.
So thank you
Exactly.
again, Lisa, the mindfulness therapist. Do check out her Instagram. It's awesome. I love
Thank
it. I'm always commenting and like, yes, that's me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Seneca. I really appreciate you having me on here. This was wonderful. I loved being able to speak to you today, and
Thank
to another
you.
fellow person living their purpose. So thank you.
You so much. And for those of you that have tuned into the replay, definitely want to know what your takeaways are for this session. What are your aha moments? What's something that you're challenged with and you're trying to conquer right now as you find your purpose or live out your purpose? If you want to connect with us, you can find us at theconquernetwork.com. Follow us on IG or on LinkedIn at The Conquer Network as well. Thank you. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.